This was commissioned by the Royal Court. They were putting together a series of monologues to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the arrival of the Windrush, which, you all know the Windrush, the ship that brought, well, supposedly brought the some of the fast migrants from the West Indies to this country. Of course, that's not true, because there's been this sort of toing and froing for many years before that, centuries, and many years after. And in fact, the Windrush only, I think, made one journey, and there were many, many ships in many, many Caribbean islands who were kind of doing these deals, bringing people back and forth, but mainly bringing them to work. So the Royal Court wanted to commemorate this anniversary, but also somehow to highlight the Windrush scandal in some way. And I found it really hard to write this monologue because I wondered if they were expecting me to speak in the voice of someone from the Windrush generation. And I felt that there's a lot of literature that already does that. Writers like Sam Selvage and George Lamming, many poets and great novelists. And so I wanted to do something else with it. You can work out, oh, and the other thing was that for these monologues, we filmed them last week. There are 7 monologues, and we filmed them over 6 days. And a man called Michael Macmillan, an academic, put together what we call he designed the West Indian front room. He curated an exhibition many years ago called the West Indian front room, which is this kind of iconic room that was preserved in many West Indian households, almost like a museum piece itself, because you never went in there. And it was this sort of hybrid of both almost Victorian English design fused with a sort of Jamaican style. So it was a sort of Jamaican take on Britishness, if you like, or the beginning of that sort of idea of Black Britishness. And so each of these monologues is set in the same front room, as they called it. And there are several objects that are specific to this front room. And so I wrote about some of those. And this piece is called The Collector. So they were meant to be 5-minute pieces. And when someone tells me to write a 5-minute piece, I always write to time. It's just my training. And I turn up and every other writer has written half an hour or something. So I wrote this to fit that very specific slot. And it's called The Collector. And the woman who speaks is probably in her 40s. I acquired the radiogram from a house clearance in Croydon. The woman who sells it to me is keen to be rid of her father's junk. He never threw anything away, and now I'm left with all this. Her eyes range across the clutter and I sense her desperation. I tell her that I'll take the paraffin heater and the glass Murano ornamental fish. I already have one of those, but the pair will sit nicely together on the coffee table. The radiogram is the pièce de résistance, an original blue tone. Her father kept it in good condition, and I feel guilty when she tells me how little she wants for it. She insists that I'm doing her a favour by taking it off her hands and helps me to load everything into the car. When I get home, Franklin is horrified. What the hell have you brought this time? Where are you going to put this? I don't answer him. Well, where else would I put it all but in the living room? The front room. He shakes his head but helps me anyway, moving furniture around, taking it in his stride when I change my mind. Franklin reminds me of my father. He too was a man who offered quiet support to my mother's restless spirit. It takes a while, but soon the room is exactly how I picture it in my head. There I say. Now it's complete. Franklin snorts and retreats into the kitchen. Complete. I'll believe that when I see it. The next week, when I show Shirley into the room, she spins slowly on the spot, taking it all in. "Oh my God," she says, "I've taken a trip in a bloody time machine. Where'd you get all this stuff?" I can't bring myself to explain what it's taken out of me, the painstaking hours spent online, the endless trawl through car boot sales. "Wonder what Mum and Dad would make of it," she says. "I don't think they'd like it at all. They wouldn't want us to live in the past." But her eyes linger on the glass fish, painted in various shades of blue to mimic the glimmering movement of the ocean on its scales. She traces with her little finger the delicate legs of a tiny glass reindeer. "You've certainly paid attention to detail, I'll give you that. It's exactly how I remember it." She strokes the surface of a doily. When I tell her its provenance, she wrinkles her nose. "When did you learn to crochet?" When we were kids, the front room was kept under lock and key, and we were forbidden to enter. It was only opened up for visitors on a Sunday. The families who visited also had front rooms that were almost exact replicas of ours. The front room put their achievements on display, spoke of the possibility of transformation, the curse of a dark history dispelled in the joy of polished, gleaming surfaces. Shirley and I would watch in wonderment as Mum opened the glass cabinet to take out gold-rimmed tumblers into which Dad poured drinks from the trolley, while we sat quietly, our legs sticking to the plastic on the sofa. We hardly dared breathe in case someone noticed our presence in this sacred adult world. It was the ground I loved the most, the ritual of music. His records were Dad's pride and joy. He'd blow the dust from the chosen disc and place it on the turntable, lift the needle and drop it into a groove. I was entranced as the needle bobbed up and down on the record like a boat at sea. To a background of their favourite music, the grown-ups shared stories of the lives they'd left back home. As kids, we knew how lucky we were to have a room of such beauty. None of our friends from school had rooms like this. One day, alone in the house, Shirley and I dared each other to retrieve the key from its hiding place and enter the front room on our own. My heart beat hard in my chest as we tiptoed around in silence. At first we didn't dare touch anything, just looked around open-mouthed. Every object seemed alive. Shirley picked up the glass reindeers and made them gallop and race each other. Her confidence emboldened me to approach the beloved radiogram. I riffled through the records just like Dad would do, chose one, blew on it, and placed it on the turntable. I picked up the needle and, mesmerised by the spinning vortex of black vinyl, waited for the moment to float it on the groove. I dropped it, but it did not float. It did not float, but ran across the surface of the record with a terrible rippling sound. Sheila and the deer stare at me open-mouthed. The room is torn in two. Then a frenzy of action as we put the record back in its sleeve, leave everything as we found it. We will never go into the front room on our own again. When Mum's arthritis flared up, she went to see her GP. He asked to see her passport. "After all the years I've been coming here, you suddenly want to see my passport?" Mum said she refused to live in a hostile environment. Dad could stay if he wanted, but she was off. Dad told me that as it had been his decision to come over in the first place, he felt it only fair that now he followed her. "Aren't you giving them what they want by leaving?" Shirley asked. "Who cares?" Mum said. "I don't care what they think of me. Nobody's going to push me around." "But you don't know anyone out there. You belong here now. We will start afresh. We did it once, we can do it again." They sold up and bought a house in Jamaica, where their garden yields coconut and banana. Hummingbirds buzz around the fruit trees. They've developed a taste for minimalism. Their house does not have a front room like this. They have no need for one. The front room spoke of their desire to belong, their version of Englishness. They grew out of it, developed new desires. When I see pictures of them from that time, they look stiff and well-behaved, like kids pretending to be grown-ups. On their veranda, talking until the sun goes down, they seem to have found themselves. The front room had a different meaning for them than it does for me. All the objects and furnishings fading in memory. I don't want to lose them. I don't want to lose myself. At the moment, I'm trying to track down a rug that depicts the Last Supper, just like the one that my parents bought from the door-to-door salesman with the silken turban who'd turn up every month to spill treasures from his suitcase onto the front room floor. Does it work? Shirley hovers over the ground with the edges of a record held between her palms. I nod and she puts it on the turntable. The room is filled with Jim Reeves' baritone. We listen in silence. Why did our parents like Jim Reeves so much? Because he died in a plane crash. Jamaicans are sentimental. Do you remember that time you scratched Dad's record? And I'm a child again. I watch Dad's puzzled, embarrassed face as he goes to show off his collection to Mr. Cook, only to hear the jarring repetition of lyrics. I love you because, I love you because, I love you because. I'm trembling with shame. I wait for Mum and Dad to unleash their anger upon me, but it never comes. My parents start giggling. They might as well be the only people in the room. They hold hands and sing along as if to a whole new song. I love you because, I love you because, I love you because.